The automotive world is awash in news at any given moment, even as the age of print media wanes like the moon in an astrology girl's horoscope. But that's why digital media is here to pick up the slack to tell you everything you need to know about what other classic nameplate is going electric, and what other iconic cars are being discontinued. And hey, look at this F-150 Raptor go head-to-head in a race against a screen-used animatronic Raptor from 1997's The Lost World Jurassic Park, or whatever headline-grabbing special interest post gets the algorithm moist. Well, in the automotive world, if you can count on nothing else, you can count on GM making a completely unforced error, Elon Musk promising an exciting new technology that we've had since 1996 or earlier, and Nissan continuing to be the standard bearer for the contemptuous eyes of enthusiast car culture, at least until Mitsubishi steps up enough for people to notice, or care. But more than any of those constants, one stands out, and that's American muscle wreaking havoc at car shows across the nation. Except, not all of them, as one famous Texas car meet has decided. This is the Roman Report for March 2024. Man, I need to think of a better title than that. The Roman Report isn't really all that original. It's basically just Colbert. Roman Report at the end of the month, and I make what I want when I feel like discussing cars. Cars. Earlier this month, Houston's renowned Coffee and Cars event made the decision to permanently ban all modern Mustang, Camaro, Charger, and Challenger models from attendance after owners did exactly what you'd expect modern muscle car owners to do at a car show. There were reports of reckless driving, burnouts, general chaos disrupting at an event whose entire duration completes an entire hour before noon. Granted, that isn't strange at all for a Cars and Coffee event, much less a Coffee and Cars event, but I don't know, that felt important to note, you know? In a now deleted Instagram post, the organizers of the event justified the ban by stating, quote, "These are the so-called enthusiasts who have ruined our car gathering. Don't complain when we do invitationals starting from today." End quote. What's wild is that this isn't even the first ban that Houston's Coffee and Cars has enacted on modern muscle cars. Back in November, they temporarily suspended Mustangs, Camaros, Chargers, and Challengers from attending, essentially putting them in timeout, with the hopes that if they sat in the corner and thought long and hard enough about what they did, they'd be on best behavior once the suspension was lifted. But once the time came, it was like going to a cookout where I'm working the grill. Burnouts were back on the menu, baby. Mustang S550. Sponsored by hiring a DJ for the gender reveal. There were reportedly muscle cars zipping around the lot like a kid gassed up on Red Dye 40, revving engines like an invisible timer is counting down and they get a speed boost if they let go before it hits 0. It was disruptive behavior, but dangerous as well, given the worn-out trope of Mustangs being a public menace at car shows. Signs were posted, signs were ignored. Bad behavior was discouraged by those in charge. Bad behavior was encouraged by those gathered around to watch angry face car go vroom vroom. Long story short, it was a recipe for disaster. Now, this is the 20th year of Houston Coffee and Cars, as the event dates back to 2004. As the official website states, the inaugural event hosted just 12 cars, but now over 6,000 attendees participate on the first Saturday of every month. It's grown to become an event where automotive brands will actually unveil new models and coordinate with event organizers for various specials like giveaways and limited time promotions. Sponsors for the event include Red Bull, Autobahn, Rafa Racing Club, Indigo Auto Group, Ferrata Wheels, Aston Martin Houston, Haggerty, and Post Houston, whose venue hosts the event. And those are just the sponsors. Official public supporters include the Houston Rockets and the Houston Astros. So this is no small town car show. This isn't even a bog standard big city car show. This is an actual event with actual sponsors, not just Kunkelman Chevrolet and Boomerino's Pizza. These are sponsors who would presumably need to be kept happy with the show's operation. Which is not to say that the organizers don't care about the safety of attendees or the general atmosphere of the show first and foremost. Obviously they do. But this show doesn't happen, at least not to the level that it's achieved, without sponsorship. And I can see how this muscle car ban might not have been a permanent one if this weren't an event backed by global sponsors with real-ass money. Dodge Charger. For the man who thinks he's hitting that bittersweet symphony walk everywhere he goes, just imagining how cool he must look in his leather jacket and his aggressive carelessness. But how cool is anybody going to look in an Ed Hardy shirt with brown mustard stains? In a press release to the Autopian following the suspension back in November, the organizers proclaimed the significance of safety for all attendees, adding that they, quote, take significant steps to ensure it, such as hiring security officers for each gathering, comprehensive planning, ample event staffing, and clear communication of our rules against reckless behaviors like revving engines and performing burnouts, end quote. It isn't yet clear, at least from what I could find, if event organizers plan on following through with the invitation-only system, but for now it appears that only modern muscle is banned. Classic muscle is apparently still welcome, although where the cutoff is, I'm not entirely sure. Are S197s welcome? Are SN95s? Of course, people are understandably upset, and I can see why. In one way, you're punishing an entire group for the actions of a few, which just brings up a whole bunch of bad elementary school memories of recess being cancelled because Tommy Fenstermacher started a food fight with the third graders. I figure most car shows would be mindful of the optics since so many struggle under the weight of an elitist perception, the idea that the old guard wants to protect their show from anything that isn't a classic car. But then this all runs a lot deeper than perception. Let's explore that, because really this is less about a few bad apples than it is about the collective danger of the Hawthorne effect. Also known as observer bias, the Hawthorne effect is basically this psychological term related to the idea that people act differently when they're being observed. According to an article detailing its history by Maya Azarova for the Nielsen-Norman Group, the Hawthorne effect has its origins in a series of studies in the 1920s by a phone manufacturing plant for Western Electric, known as Hawthorne Works. The study was intended to gauge how productivity would be affected when light was increased in the workspace. One group had the normal lighting, and the other group worked under additional lighting conditions. Because the increased light gave the impression of workers being more strictly observed, productivity in the test group improved. But that was just one set of data. The study continued, but the conditions were altered. So, for example, instead of changing the amount of light in the workplace, they changed the amount of breaks for the test group, or the size of the team in the test group, or the pay structure. Regardless of what the parameters were, the productivity in the test group always improved, presumably because they knew they were being observed. They were getting attention that caused them to act differently than they normally would. And over the years, this has been applied to account for improved hand washing hygiene, and even in everyday life with the inclusion of fake security cameras meant to deter people from breaking the law. You even see it in the automotive world when the speeding car in front of you suddenly slows down because there's a Stady parked just up ahead on the median. Is it too late by that point? Fucking probably, but, they're still gonna try to brake anyway, because that's what they do, And we all kind of lose track over time of what our speed is. We don't mean to do it, it's just that cars want to go fast for the most part, unless you're driving like a Geo Metro. I don't know. But here's the thing. Not every instance of the Hawthorne effect results in a positive outcome. If being observed makes you act differently than you normally might, the same must apply to negative behaviors. Or at least negative behaviors that the person perceives as positive behaviors. Because that's more or less what I think is happening here. It's not so much that Mustang, Camaro, Challenger, and Charger drivers are inherently worse or more dangerous or more obnoxious than other drivers, although you could probably make those arguments. It's a free world. Okay, it's not a free world, but you know what I'm trying to say. Rather, it's that when crowds gather around, your behavior is rewarded with attention, and that attention then feeds into more outlandish behavior, especially if you view that attention positively. But also, in a very self-fulfilling prophecy sort of way, I could almost see a muscle car owner acting more outlandishly because as a muscle car owner, they feel the people observing them expect them to act that way. This is what you wanted, and this is what I'll give you. How could I be a muscle car guy if I didn't? And the end result is a band that takes observation out of the equation altogether. So we're left with a central question. Is there a better way to have gone about this, or did the Coffee and Cars organizers really have no other choice? Well, I guess one possible solution is that rather than banning muscle cars or making the entire event invitation only, you could have the muscle cars by invitation only, since you would then presumably have identification for any potentially offending car. Then you can just ban that car and driver rather than instituting a blanket ban on all modern muscle car offerings. Because for as much as people might complain that most modern car shows go far too heavy on American muscle, to say nothing of the Corvettes that end up dominating a lot of the spaces, the reality is that those cars and their drivers tend to be sort of vital to the scene. You remove all muscle cars from a meet around here, and you basically destroy attendance figures for that event, not necessarily because those are the cars people want to see, but because those are the cars that attend in the first place. Of course, I say that, but I think I was the only person at last year's RCR car meet to bring a Mustang that at least I remember. As for Coffee and Cars, while it's sad to see an entire group get banned for the actions of a few people, it's sort of understandable why it happened, even if there are plenty who don't agree with it. There's part of me that totally gets why people hate the domestication of everything these days. Like, we need to make everything kid-friendly, even when those things aren't specifically designed for children. So we can't curse on social media, and we have roped-off drinking areas at the beer fest because kids are around for some dumbass reason. Some vehicle models have, windows that don't go all the way down, and streaming services are constantly recommending children's programming when, you're child-free and single as the day God made you. It's frustrating, but I also understand that on a basic level, the privilege of a safe and agreeable car show is not just for kids. Plenty of adults don't want to see or hear burnouts, donuts, or excessive revving, or have to operate under the concern that some flashy jerk is going to roll their Mustang around a group of civilians like a dipped ice cream bar getting covered in crushed peanuts. And that's what I think of that. For better or worse, this is how you keep car shows viable for the general public, because I'm not sure they survive beyond a small-time level relying solely on enthusiasts, particularly a show like this, with big money behind it. Maybe that's the simplest explanation for everything, from banning muscle cars to making everything kid-friendly. This is how you protect revenue. This is how you maximize profit. Witness the world turn. Same as it ever was. But what do you think? Was this handled in the right way? Should other car shows consider measures to mitigate bad actors? Or is this all blown out of proportion? Let me know what you think in the comments. Well, that wraps up the inaugural edition of the Roman Report. I kinda wish I had a better name for it since the title seems obvious and lazy, but it also fits. And I'm not even sure when or if I'll do this again anyway, since I have an RCR story that has taken way too long to finish writing, and I need to get that done if I'm ever to know peace. But if you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video, it really helps us out. But then only if you enjoyed it. I'm not asking for free likes. But consider sharing it with someone else you think might enjoy it. Have a great day, a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you Monday morning for a new episode of RCR. Thanks.